You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Hey, I'm Joe, and I'm a composer and a musician.
That's why we call you the maestro. And I'm Will. I'm a literal doctor.
But don't trust this guy with your ailments.
No, I study comic books, but it still counts.
We're a couple of creative kids who host a podcast called Common Creatives.
We dig deep into filmmakers, musicians, books, and characters, really all types of artistic works and the people who make them.
We break apart the art we love to see what makes it tick.
Basically, we give you the definitive take on whatever or whoever we're discussing. All opinions are definitive and final.
So check out Common Creatives wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the 11T Life podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of 11T Life. My name is Matt Langston. I'm so happy to have you here. To everybody who is a listener of the show, who is 11T family, welcome. If you are brand new to the show, welcome to you too. Grab a unicorn and let's ride it into somewhere magical. I hope that all of you are staying safe during this COVID pandemic. It is rearing its head yet again, and I hate to think about anybody, especially people a part of our listenership or a part of our 11T family, being in pain and being affected by that. And I know that has happened. That's definitely been the case for us during 2020. I don't know anybody that's been left untouched yet, and it seems like it could get a lot worse. So just an encouragement to everybody out there that we're thinking about you, and we're doing our best to continue to make some really fun content here at Rock Candy Recordings. Speaking of which, if you have not checked out the other shows on our network, head on over to rockcandyrecordings.com and you will find more shows like this one, an entire community of people creating open-minded and kind-hearted and thought-provoking content. In addition to those wonderful creators and creations, the actual physical Rock Candy Recordings Studios is open for all of your production, mixing, and mastering services or needs, wants, or desires. So you can find all this stuff out over at rockcandyrecordings.com. I'll see you over there. Hey, I'm really excited about the episode that we have today. I get to sit down and talk with the one and only Jeff Simpson, whose artist name is Essenger. And if you are into new wave, synthwave, EDM, you are going to want to check this guy out. He's doing some amazing work. He and I connected a few years ago, and I had the pleasure of being able to catch back up with him and talk about his production process and some cool new shit that he's just done for the Midnight. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that band, but they are one of the preeminent new wave, synthwave bands of our era. They make incredibly fun tunes. However, this episode is not about them. It is about Jeff Simpson. And I had a blast with him talking about the latest releases that he has been creating and crafting during the COVID pandemic. Speaking of new releases, our band Eleventyseven has a brand new EP called Beta Mosh, and it is out on all streaming platforms. A huge thank you and unicorn hugs to everybody who is clicking little hearts next to those songs on there or saving them to your favorite playlist. Gosh, it means the world to us, and we're forever grateful. Big unicorn love to all of the wonderful, beautiful, amazing people at the 11T Life Facebook group and on the Rock Candy and 11T Life Discord groups. You can get to all of that just by clicking on the show notes of this very show. And head over there and find a new friend. It has been a strange few months here at Rock Candy, and if you're anything like me, normally around this time of year, I start feeling super depressed and sad, and I start going into the existential rabbit holes and collapsing in on myself like a dying human star of overthinking and weirdly toxic self-introspection. So I just want to encourage any of you guys out there, if you are feeling that same way, it is a wave, my friend. And I feel like I've been alive and on this planet long enough to understand that all of these feelings, this weirdness, this awkward malaise that it seems so easy to fall into, especially this time of year when everything's changing. Everything's beautiful outside, the leaves look amazing, and a lot of times our insides are not reflective of the beauty of the world on our outside. And that's how I feel right now, and I am just going to sit in it and let it tell me something. Let it teach me something about myself. I am not going to try to fight these feelings. I'm going to let them have their space and be kind to them in the same way that I hope that they are kind to me. It helps to remind myself that feelings are only tenants in the room of your house, in the space of your mind, and they will not stay forever. So if there's anybody else who's familiar with that feeling, especially this time of year, my heart goes out to you, and let's sit and feel this together, because something fun is just around the corner. and it's going to be all right. Having said that, I hope that this conversation with the beautiful, lovely, talented Jeff Simpson puts a little bit of a spark or a bright spot in your day. And if you are a musician, an artist, a producer into music creation in some form or another, I think you're going to really dig today's episode because we get super deep, dark, and nerdy on it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. I hope that you enjoy today's episode with Essenger.
I just want to make sure everything sounds good and have any issues.
Yeah.
Because I was having mic troubles earlier.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
I think we're good now.
So, dude, how has 2020 been for you so far?
It's been pretty crazy. I mean, with COVID and everything, it kind of slowed a lot of things down, and I think it brought some other opportunities as well.
Yeah. So you were saying that you were coming from work before we got online here. So what does your day normally look like?
I work for a company they used to be called Nielsen. They got
the ratings company.
Now they're owned by the MRC. Basically, I work in the audio recognition section of MRC data. We used to be Nielsen.
Okay.
That did like the rating stuff.
Yeah.
Basically statistics on what's played on the radio.
Awesome. Right on. How did you end up with a job like that?
I literally just saw an ad for it on Indeed, and I applied and ended up getting it.
Nice. What is it about the job that like attracted you to that?
A lot of the work from home thing. It gives me a little more time, like with no commute. Then there's a lot more time to work on music. Right.
That's awesome, man. So are you doing that full time or part time?
I spend all day pretty much listening to jazz music off random U.S. radio stations. That's the genre that I was assigned.
That's awesome, man. So just make sure all that data is there. Know who to send.
Yeah.
Who to send money
helps
to.
Like Billboard build the charts and stuff and figure out who got played.
I love that. That's wonderful. So yeah, you've obviously over the last 18 months been working, it seems very feverishly in your catalog, putting out some incredibly fascinating new music. And I've been familiarizing myself with a lot of it over the past few weeks or so. And also, I think we started following what you were doing kind of at the beginning of the birth of Essenger. What was that? 4 years ago, maybe?
That was a mid 2018.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So what was it tell me about the origin of this project and how you got started.
I'd been doing stuff under other aliases, and it wasn't really working out that well because, I wanted to be all over the place, just so many different genres.
Yeah.
And it's hard to market something like that. So I just ended up kind of taking a year off of music just because of mental health stuff. And I was in a long-term relationship. And a lot of times with that, you can kind of spend too much time away from what you want to be doing. And then after a very difficult breakup and a long mental health struggle, I ended up starting that project. And it was a very personal project compared to what I had done before. And I think that's kind of what made people want to connect with it.
So what is it about Essenger that makes it more personal as compared to your other projects that you've worked on?
The songs that I write all have to do, or mostly have to do with some connection to my personal life.
Yeah.
Whether it's more metaphorical or just very raw and honest.
I would love to sort of pick your brain about what you're doing production-wise, because it seems like you've kind of gone from 0 to 60 in terms of production quality with all of the Essenger stuff.
Yeah. I got better at production. I got better at production over the last 1 or 2 years than I have in the last 15 years of producing. Or I think maybe 13 years.
What do you think was the catalyst for that?
I think just it's different in this age. When I was 15, there wasn't a lot of resources available. Especially, I used to do a lot of EDM, and best thing you could find on YouTube was how to Skrillex growl tutorial, and it was really bad.
Right.
A lot of the kids these days have a better access to stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think if I had stuff like that when I was younger, I'd probably be a little further along. But I have friends who are like, these producer friends who are like 15. They're making these crazy tracks with insane production. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of fortunate to have that stuff on. Not that that's what makes you better at producing, but it definitely helps to have content available to help you learn.
Yeah, for sure, man. So there's a little bit of kind of a jerky thing happening with the audio.
Oh, hold up. It might be, is that better?
Oh yeah, perfect.
I had a little gate on it.
Awesome.
I'm kind of curious, how did you end up finding my stuff?
So I think that maybe we might follow each other on Facebook, and I know that because when I reached out to you, I also realized like, oh shit, this is the same Jeff Simpson that that reached out like a few years back about the Jelly Rock stuff, because it showed up in my Facebook Messenger, and I was like, you know how everybody, like, there's so many different things on your periphery on the internet, and sometimes it's hard to kind of connect the dots. And know what's going on.
I recently connected with this one producer, and he's like, oh yeah, we've been friends on Facebook for like 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen you around.
Right, yeah. So it was definitely that kind of a situation. And then I think I saw a post or something that you had done some production for the Midnight, and I'm a really big Midnight fan. I love everything that they do. And then I just started digging into your stuff, and then I kind of felt like a total asshole for not getting into it sooner, or not. You know, everything just gets crazy, and everybody's kind of fighting for attention and clicks and listening and everything. And we're constantly working on stuff in the studio, so it's rare that we ever get the chance to like become a fan of another band just out of unless we're working on it.
It's like you always want to support your fellow artists, but I feel like once you hit like your mid-20s, it's really hard to stay connected with everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about how this Midnight stuff came to happen, because that's really exciting for you, man.
Oh yeah. Honestly, the Midnight is probably among my favorite artists of all time. And I got into their stuff around 2018, about a year before I started Essenger. And they reached out to me earlier this year about doing a live show around the time that COVID started. And it was like this virtual thing. And it was really fun. And they're like, we want to reach out to you about this project we're working on. A few months later, they're like, all right, we got 6 songs and we've got about 2 months to finish these tracks.
Right.
So we got together and we made this EP in like 2 months as like Halloween special.
Oh, I love it.
And it was very fun. I connected with Tim a lot more than I thought we did. We were like geeking out over all this synth stuff.
Yeah.
I ended up buying probably like $400 worth of synths just from him showing me stuff. And I'm like, it was really fun working with them. Tyler's great too. And it's likely we might end up doing something down the line together again.
I love that. That's super cool. Well, the stuff that you guys,
they're great guys.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the creative process. Were you guys essentially just kind of like track swapping, or kind of building things up and sending ideas back and forth during the earlier part of the year?
They came to me with about, I think, 5 or 6 demo tracks, and they wanted me on, I think, 4 of them.
Yeah.
And they just gave me the tracks, and he's like, all right, do your thing. So one of them was like a rough demo that I kind of remade. Yeah. And then a lot of it was me and Tim on Discord sending back and forth files. Yeah. And talking about it.
That's awesome,
and
man.
It went very smoothly. Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to collaborate with people, but it kind of depends on if we have like a very similar mindset. And Tim and I have been kind of on the same wavelength about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Regarding production.
God, isn't that true though? That, you know, everybody says that, oh my gosh, we have all this technology now. It's like so easy to collaborate with people. It's so easy to reach out to people. And yes, it is like the technology is there, but the human element of collaboration is something entirely different. And you can have,
I think it's very important.
Like the fastest internet connection in the world. But if you're not on the same brainwave or wavelength, or I don't know, on the same island, you know, that somebody else is on mentally and creatively, that's almost worse than not having a super fast internet connection to be able to work on things. I always think that's super fascinating. But what do you think it was about working with Tim that you feel like it made it easier, or it was easier to kind of just ride the wave?
We have kind of, I think sometimes it comes down to taste in music, but like specific types of chord progressions. Like we really like the kind of when a little arpeggio comes in and then the chords come in underneath it. Yeah. And just kind of little subtleties about certain tracks that we connected about.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So did you guys find that you were working on a lot of the same synthesizers, or you were saying you ended up kind of blowing a lot of cash on
We
new
already
synths?
had. Oh yeah, well we already had a couple that we used a lot. Definitely Diva, and he ended up showing me a bunch of synthesizers, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get these.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
It also made it easier to send presets and stuff back and forth.
So is Diva kind of like your go-to thing, or was it their go-to thing?
Yeah, that's my go-to. It's kind of one of those analog emulator synths. And there's a lot you can do with it. Like I'm working on a sample pack right now, and I'm synthesizing the drums pretty much 100% in Diva.
Nice.
Which has been really fun. It's a challenge. I've never really done anything like that before. But
yeah. So just
my other one is Repro 5, made by the same company.
Oh, okay.
Tim got me into that one too.
That's awesome. So
what do you use a whole lot?
Well, I was going to say,
stuff?
so in Diva, you're kind of getting into building drum sounds from the ground up. Are we talking like kick snares?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kick snares, maybe not like the organic sounding cymbals, but like the stuff that you hear on the Lin drum. I didn't realize it until like a couple of years ago, but that stuff's pretty much 100% analog generated from synths.
I love that. I love kind of getting into the nitty gritty of what is possible with sound sculpting and sound design. And I don't know, it just gives you a completely different kind of agency over what you're trying to create when you're trying to craft a track. And it makes you feel a little bit more bought in and not so like plug and play with it. I don't know if you feel that way, but I kind of nerd out about that stuff. We use a bunch of analog stuff here.
I figured. I've kind of seen this stuff in the studio.
Yeah. So I think
I'd like to get into that.
Man, almost every time that we open up a session, I just go ahead and fire up the Juno 106 because I just know that I'm going to want to put it.
Aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also the controls are really simple and laid out. And I do love working with software synthesizers, but sometimes it's just different experience to kind of put your hands on the circuit board and kind of feel that hum underneath your fingers as you're working on stuff. But yeah, and we run analog stuff through a whole lot of like distortion and guitar pedals. And so there's like this whole kind of sonic palette that I feel like we've been developing over the last, 3 or so years, where that just kind of like, I feel like I'm not happy until I'm doing that, Yeah. Because I get so bummed out just getting in that weird mode where you're just scrolling through presets and you're like, well, maybe that one, well, not quite.
Yeah,
or
that's why I take a lot of time to the side when I'm not inspired. I just sit there and I just make presets. So that way when I'm composing, I don't have to lose my flow by spending too much time on sound design.
Yeah. What a great use of time that is for you.
That's part of why I don't stream on Twitch, like production stuff. All my friends do that. But like, if you were to watch me on Twitch, it would just be 2 hours of me scrolling through kicks.
Right. Brother, I totally feel you there. And I also feel like one of the things that I really love about your production style and about the sounds that you end up using are that everything from the pads to the bass sounds that you're using feel so wide. They feel so massive. Your construction of your song in terms of structure feels so good. Sorry, I'm just like going to dote on you here for a little bit. Yeah. But I think that's so cool.
I use a lot of Omnisphere.
Yeah. So what are you
for the pads?
What are you listening for when you're scrolling through things? Are you going for like maximum stereo wideness, or are you just looking for a vibe or a feel, or are you just waiting until your emotions kind of tell you, hey, that's it? A
lot of times I'll layer stuff over the top that's kind of spread out over the spectrum.
Yeah.
It kind of fills things in and is wider. Like sometimes Foley sound effects or just extra layers.
Yeah, like white noise stuff kind of in the background, or
like little crackles and stuff.
Yeah.
Just I love when a song starts and it's I mean there's something to be said for that, but if it's just like one synth or something, I kind of like a little bit of kind of maybe a gritty texture or just something to spice it up.
Yeah, for sure.
That stuff lasts, but
well, I can't wait to see if in the next year you end up getting into some analog stuff.
Oh, I would love to. It's just kind of being able to afford that stuff right now. It's not necessarily like super priority. Yeah,
for sure.
But I would love to.
It is kind of amazing now just how inexpensive it is, well, especially if you're using cracked software, like how easy it is to just like make these amazing sounding productions that really do have an emotional impact on the listener. And I mean, things that would have cost so much money and so much time and attention to detail. And like, there's just so much more ways that we're able to manipulate and create sound now that just like would have been absolutely unthinkable even just, 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. And like financially feasible.
Yeah.
Because if you had a band back then, you'd have to pay a lot of money to go in and hire an engineer and everything.
Well, and then you're always kind of
more accessible.
You're at the behest of your engineer, or your producer at the time. So it's like, I love when I'm producing for people and they'll bring in things that they've worked really hard on, or we're able to kind of swap presets, or they're able to, they've spent the time trying to developing a vernacular and a vocabulary so that we can all speak the same language when we're working on a track, especially if we're working on the same kind or type of synthesizers. It sounds like you might have experienced a little bit of that with Tim and the Midnight Guys being able to do that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Tell me about, especially with the latest projects that you've put out, is there anything particular that stands out that you feel more proud of? Like maybe it's not the most streamed thing that you have, but maybe you have a few songs that feel the most personally fulfilling to you as an artist.
Oh, yeah. I have this song that I put out. I think it was the second song I ever released. It's called Eyes Closed. And I've never been able to make something quite like it. It's just kind of its own thing, and it's my favorite one I've done. It's just very warm and has this particular nostalgic mood to it.
Yeah.
I kind of wrote a lot of songs about the exact same thing in different ways around that time, and that one there's just something about it that's just so personal and kind of takes me back.
Wait, can you pinpoint what that kind of magic or pixie dust is in that track that elicits that feeling?
It might be the chord progression.
Okay. So do you remember?
I'm not great with like chord names and stuff. Like I know what everything's supposed to be, what it sounds like, but I couldn't pick you out a chord and be like, oh, this is whatever without like going and analyzing it.
That's actually really encouraging.
More of like a produced by ear type person.
I think you and I are very similar in that way.
Music at all?
Yeah, I can't read music for shit. I'm so bad at it. I feel like it would be really disappointing for people to see me in the studio writing things, trying to figure out chords,
100% feel that.
Adding notes, taking them away, just absolutely plucking around like a 5-year-old on a toy piano, trying to make something sound fun.
Yeah, if I'm collaborating with someone who's like more into that, I'm just like picking my brain, like trying to figure out, what's this V chord progression and this sort of, yeah, it's something I would like to get into a little more, just to be able to learn more working with other people.
Yeah, it's definitely like run across my mind a few times, especially during COVID. There's so many like awesome musicians that I feel like I've met over my time here on Earth that they're exactly like that. They blow me away with just their ability to create chord. Or if I'm like, hey, can you make this chord more sexy? They're like, oh yeah, that's an add so and so. It's like to it, and it just makes it feel this way.
I could do that, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what I'm doing.
Right, exactly. I feel like I suffer from a lack of knowledge or a lack of musical education in that way, and I wish that when I was younger, I had put in more time to kind of get those foundations. Because now I feel like I'm just constantly skirting around everything. But then at the core of it, it's just play. It's not me sitting down and being like, lessons. Yeah, I know. Oh, so at what age did you do that?
I didn't keep up on those. I think my parents tried to make me take them a few times over a couple years. And I don't know what happened. I just didn't really practice, and I didn't get into it, which ironically enough, piano is or keyboard is the instrument I'm best at.
Yeah.
At least with figuring out chords and composing. I play guitar, but I don't really know my way around it as well.
Yeah.
Kind of by ear.
I feel like the keys still feel like these uncharted waters to me, where like I can pick up a guitar and I feel like a song is much more likely to come quicker, or a song idea or a chord progression is more likely to come out more quick if I'm on an acoustic guitar. But then when I move over to a keyboard, it's more work, it's more challenging, it's more frustrating and even infuriating at times, but I always feel more surprised at whatever comes out when I'm writing on keys than when I'm writing on guitar. For me, it's kind of the
other way around.
Really?
Yeah, I usually start a song with just kind of a little synth line, and then I'll put chords under it, or start with chords. I work in a very unconventional way. I'll start with the intro. Put all the instruments in the intro. I'll build it up. I'll mix the intro. That's all good. I move on to the next section. I'll do the same. I'll do that. I'll put down the chords. I'll write the vocals. I'll record maybe the final vocals. mix that section, then I move on to the end, and then there's no mix down at the end. It's really weird.
That's so interesting. It's almost
like maddening to some people, but I like it because I never know where the track is going to go. It's always like a surprise, and that may not necessarily always be a good thing, but it just kind of leaves like, what's next? Where is this going to go?
In creativity, I don't know if there's any good or bad. It sounds almost like building a house, but starting by like just building the front door and then building a house around it. When you're talking about building the intro and everything, but that can also be really empowering because it's almost like reading a book. Like that's the experience that you get when you're reading a book, where you're like, if that first chapter is like really engaging, then you're like, oh my God, there's a whole story here. And it's sometimes just, like every book kind of starts off with the first chapter in a way like that. And I like that.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy
of creativity, of just like being able to create something that like, oh, I'm just going to create the start of something that excites me about what might be next, and then ride that wave from there.
Yeah. And if I don't really like to, a lot of people do like a skeleton, they'll just throw down rough bass, drums, and guitar and then polish it at the end. I think maybe it's just the perfectionist in me or something, but everything has to be like perfect before I move on to the next bit.
Where do you think that comes from?
It's okay if it doesn't have like all the spice on top of it and polish, but I like to kind of get everything sounding good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think again, maybe it just comes from being a perfectionist and having to hear everything I want in that section before the next.
Right.
What's your process with songwriting or production?
I found myself working backwards a lot recently. So most of the time in a song, I feel like I will keep playing around. I guess because we grew up doing so much pop songwriting and kind of, and all the, the people that we worked with, that was the big thing. It's like, you need a hook. Chorus needs to feel like home base. It needs to feel familiar. It needs to feel engaging. It needs to feel empowering. And so I feel like that's always the mark that I'm trying to hit. So most of the time I'll start out with a chorus idea, like lay down a loop or some chords that kind of get me in the mood for something, or play around with a bass line that feels cool. And as I'm doing that, I feel like my subconscious is kind of throwing melody ideas over top of it. So most of the songs end up with choruses first. And then from the chorus, it's like, sometimes it's writing backwards to the extent that I'm literally writing a line at a time from the chorus backwards. Because I'm not, and then I have, at the end of all of that, I have to figure out if it started correctly.
Do you have any go-to resources for writing lyrics and melodies?
Rhymezone.com.
Yes, there it is, dude. I have that open 100% of the time when I'm writing.
Yes,
for like the synonyms or rhymes or just anything. I feel like I write literally like 10 times faster with that.
It's
not that it's like new stuff. It's just like kind of, it helps me get where I want quicker.
Yes,
it's like I already had that word that I wanted, but it just kind of helps me find it.
Yeah. I find that I get stuck in this really weird writing funk where I'll start getting way too into matching syllables or cadence. And so like I feel like Rhymezone helps me to keep the process moving, but I'm not sure it moves me faster, because there are a lot of times where I have to just like stop trying to fit words in there and stop trying to like do all that exploratory stuff and just sit and think about what the song is, what's the message that I'm actually trying to convey, and then do some free writing from there.
Yeah, I do that too sometimes.
Yeah. Do you find that helpful?
For me, I think for me, I usually start my songs with the titles.
Oh, cool.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Because then I have, whether it's really related to the song or not, like sometimes I end up changing the title, but that initial idea kind of gets it running, and I have a good idea of what the song is about, usually, unless it kind of changes over time. And then I use Rhymezone kind of in conjunction with that kind of concept. I'll like find words or just find like word banks and stuff.
Yeah.
And that just kind of moves me to the point where I want to be with the song.
I love that.
I think that's my fastest, my strong point is like vocal hook writing. And like, I think just lyric writing is really fast for me.
So while you're doing this, are you kind of like top lining over your track, kind of do that weird thing where if somebody walked in the room and they saw you trying to figure out a melody, it would feel embarrassing? Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's usually how I come up with the melodies. I often do the melodies first, and then I kind of have like a format for how I want it. And then I base the maybe the next verse off of the same thing.
Yeah.
The melody repeat.
I feel so bad for my wife sometimes because when I'm top lining a song or I'm trying to figure out a melody, it's literally just a string of profanities all kind of slung together because they're just like the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh yeah, I've done that too.
But yeah, that's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, one other thing is I like to find words that sound good, like that sound punchy, and
yes,
I don't know how you describe it, but just that sound good. Like when you throw a compressor on it, that's just gonna hit really hard.
Yeah, stuff with consonants in it.
Oh yeah,
like P's and T's and K's. I love that.
Yeah. I just like to find words that maybe you wouldn't hear people use a lot that just sound really cool.
Oh God, I feel like we are two peas in a pod right now. There are times where I'll come across a word and my only thought is, I've never heard that word in a song. I'm going to put that word in a song.
I think that's one thing that I really liked about your music is that it had a lot of that in it. That might have inspired me a little bit.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I feel like my lyrics are starting to get a little bit too complicated sometimes. It's like too like intricately detailed and specific.
Yeah, I definitely get in my head about lyrics, and if there's one thing I feel like I spend way too much time on, it's just that. But then at the same time, it's like I feel like I'm getting into this new phase of songwriting where I'm constantly trying to move different rhymes and things around to make it like kind of fun for the listener so that it feels almost like as they're listening to the song, it's kind of fun where things rhyme and how they rhyme together and throwing things back. I feel like hip hop is really good at doing that.
Yeah.
Just as a genre, it's kind of fun to play around with cadences and everything.
Yeah, definitely an inspiration for that and some of the stuff I've been working on.
So are you listening to a lot of music outside of your genre, or do you kind of stay within that realm of new wave?
Almost completely. Like I don't listen to, I mean, kind of my focus lately has been synthwave, but I don't listen to a lot of synthwave. I did kind of a couple years ago, and I definitely appreciate and enjoy it, but it's not really my go-to most of the time. I like to do this thing where every couple weeks I find like a new genre or something that I've never listened to before, and I kind of try to find an appreciation for something in that. And one time that really hit home about a couple years ago when I looked up like Punjabi pop.
Okay.
This is music from India, and I found this playlist, and I was just so hooked. I just like wanted to see like what are they doing over there.
Right.
And now I've got this playlist that I just play in the car, and I'm just banging that everywhere I drive.
Yes, I'm writing that down,
and I can't get anyone else into it. I mean, a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is cool," but no one really gets that same drive for it.
I'm just always listening for something that makes me think about music in a different or new or exciting way.
Yeah,
so a lot of the stuff
that harder lately to find stuff that kind of grabs my attention.
Well, I've found Splice to be like this wellspring of content to be able to use in songs of that.
Oh yeah,
sparks this creativity that I didn't know, or sparks a creative direction that I wasn't ready to go in, but then it's something about it moves you. Like even just a certain hi-hat loop or a percussion loop that you throw over something, it's like, oh my God, what a cool vibe. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, definitely. Me and Tim were using Splice a lot. A lot of times I would just throw down a track that's like almost all Splice drum loops, and that kind of inspires the vibe. Yeah. And then usually sometimes I'll leave stuff in, but I'll go in and make it my own or try to recreate that loop with like some other different drums and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of chop stuff around.
For sure.
I think it's very valuable.
There are times where I might have 10 separate loops all kind of put into one single one. They're all chopped up just because I heard this cool little part of a loop that I think works really well in a track. Or
oh yeah, there'll be like one part of it that you're not supposed to use this way, but it
right.
You just move it over like a couple beats, and it brings something completely different.
Which is like kind of amazing. Like I have no idea what might have happened in my musical career if I had something like Splice at the beginning of it. It's crazy.
I like what you're saying about that with using things in different ways, because I found this hard style kick. I don't make hard style, but I stretched it out with, I think, Paul Stretch or something, and it made this beautiful bass texture under one of the songs I made.
Oh wow.
And I think it's kind of trying to use things in different ways that you wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah. So you're working in Ableton though.
Yeah. What are you using?
Well, I'm in Pro Tools, and I've always thought that Ableton has vastly superior like time stretching, time warping capabilities than Pro Tools does. Yeah. So as long as I'm staying within like 15 beats per minute of a loop, I can stretch it or tighten it or whatever. But
I don't think it matters that much what DAW you're using, because you can pretty much get the same result. I mean, sometimes they have like native plugins, but
yeah,
it's really kind of, you can use a lot of the same VSTs. It's some people prefer a different workflow. I used to use Reason, or my dad bought me like Reason 3 in like 2004, I think.
Oh my God.
And that was a bit of a learning curve. The layout and workflow is just so weird in that program, but I got all used to it, and I'm like, shit, I need to be able to use like VSTs.
Yeah.
And Reason has like these racks that like come with it that you can buy that are just kind of made by that company. And of course, the second I switched over to Ableton, Reason introduced VST support.
Right.
But I like Ableton's workflow a lot better. And the best part of that is being able to do stuff live. I can automate pretty much everything I want. I'll be playing like a keyboard part, and it'll switch over to a new keyboard part when the new part of the song hits without me touching a button.
I mean, that's a really cool thing for your dad to get you at such a young age, right? Is he musically inclined?
My dad wanted me to get into music.
Okay.
My parents are both musicians. I think my mom even plays the drums.
Oh, wow.
Keyboard, and my dad plays like bass, guitar, mandolin, pedal steel, drums, all sorts of stuff.
What is it like growing up with a rocker mom?
I think she and my dad put out like a little kind of Latin album with him and their band. And I was like, I think I was born while they were like doing some tour in South America.
Yeah.
I don't remember much of it. Yeah, I grew up in Venezuela.
Oh, right on. So do you feel like that sort of informs the way that you, or the kinds of music or things creatively that you gravitate towards now? Or was it just so long ago that it's hard to connect the dots?
Possibly. My first language was kind of Spanish growing up, and it kind of was back and forth between English and Spanish. So I'd like to do a song in Spanish at some point, but I grew up with a lot of the music from that country as well. I moved from there to Panama when I was 14 or 15.
Oh, wow.
So I've only been in the U.S. about 10 years.
Oh, my gosh.
7 or 8 years. But yeah, it's definitely shaped a lot of things.
Yeah. Do you prefer one over the other at this point?
I would like to go back to Venezuela at some point to visit if things ever clear up there. And I'd definitely like to go back to Panama. It's interesting having a different perspective of this country, having grown up in Latin America.
Yeah.
Some things I like, some things I don't like. Some of the food's a little weird.
Yeah. What do your parents think about the music that you produce right now? Are they into it, or are they just
like it? Yeah. They've been very supportive, and I've been very appreciative of that, because not everyone's parents wants them to do that.
You're telling me.
You can probably imagine.
Man, that's awesome.
When did you start with the whole music thing?
My parents got me an electric guitar for Christmas, I think when I was 15. And I just,
Same here.
Yeah. So I just got into it.
It was an acoustic.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like if you're a parent and you're trying to get your kid like into music, just bypass the acoustic phase and just get them an electric guitar, because there's so many more fun, amazing things that you could do that are, I don't know, that feel a little bit more youthful, unless you're just like into Taylor Swift or any of that stuff.
Yeah. And it was a classical guitar too. It came with this little DVD of like flamenco music, and I just went right into that DVD and learned to play like this weird fingerstyle stuff that had nothing to do with anything that I wanted to do, but it was interesting.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I guess that would have been more common, like growing up in Venezuela, Panama, having fingerstyle picking guitar.
More. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. So the
I listened to a lot
synthesizers,
of, like reggaeton growing up too.
Okay,
So
yeah.
my parents hated it, but it was a cool thing.
So it was you said reggaeton?
Reggaeton.
Okay, reggaeton. So would that have been the equivalent of like getting into something like heavy metal or punk rock for Venezuelan kids? Or
That would be more the equivalent of like hip hop.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
They would blare that in their speakers, so the pickup trucks and stuff.
it was the cool
I
hip
loved
music.
it, and my parents hated it.
That's kind of part of being a teenager, though, right? Is just like being into all this shit that your parents hate.
I'm curious, what was the first like band or artist that you discovered on your own?
Oh man,
A lot of our parents like have us listen to their music growing up.
the bands that I started to get into when I was younger, kind of like for my parents specifically freaked them out a little bit because all of the music that I kind of gravitated towards was explicitly gay. For the time, it was all these like amazing new wave artists, Pet Shop Boys, Depeche Mode, all this stuff kind of coming out of Sheffield, Human League, and all of that stuff. Like, and I didn't know any of this at the time because I was just a kid, but it was all kind of like, you know, Erasure, bands like that had definitely had this kind of like gay or LGBTQ culture that it was primarily a part of. And those were things I wasn't picking up on at the time, but I think it kind of freaked my parents out because I'm just a teenager and all of a sudden I'm into these like flamboyant, eccentric bands and artists who I'm still into today. I still think that they're amazing. I love it. But yeah, I think new wave and those kinds of bands were the first bands that I kind of discovered on my own. Yeah. And I don't even really know how that happened. Probably the internet, America Online or Yahoo. So
I think my first one was Sum 41. And from there, it was like all alternative stuff.
Yeah.
I was into like really heavy music for the longest time. I did like vocals for like hardcore local bands stuff. It was fun. That's kind of where I got some of the screaming stuff.
I can totally hear that.
And I still listen to that stuff.
Yeah. Well, you have a very specific voice that works very well for it. I could never pull off the kind of vocal shit that you do in some of the songs that I've been listening to over the last few weeks. So just super powerful.
Coronavirus has just screwed my voice.
Really?
I had it a couple months back, and 2 months after recovering, it's still just going downhill.
Oh my God. So what was that experience like?
My vocals just feel like ripped up. Like the aftermath has just been constant fatigue all the time. Just stay away from that if you can avoid it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I haven't had that happen yet, but everything around us is starting to turn red.
I just didn't realize like how heavy of an effect it could have on you, like post after you recover.
Yeah. So what have your symptoms felt like? You're saying that you are having a hard time getting your voice back. It feels like you're constantly battling fatigue.
Yeah, like a lot of times I'll be singing like during a session, and maybe after 5 minutes, I'm just like this hurts. So I got to just continue the next day. It's worse some days than others, but
yeah. And
just fatigue, like brain fog.
Yeah.
I've been super forgetful lately.
Wow. Man, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope that you continue to improve and that your recovery happens a little more quickly.
A lot of people who've had it longer say that it starts to get better. So I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hate that for you, man.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I stayed home and everything. So there's really no way to avoid it. Found its way in.
Wow. So you were doing the lockdown thing and you still got it.
Yeah. My roommates and I, we were all kind of at home most of that time, and somehow I got in. Yeah,
we were supposed to do a tour of Japan in April, and all of that ended up getting canceled because it became like a hella hotspot for everything.
Yeah, I had a tour plan too, and that never went through.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you? This would not have been your first tour. You've been playing in bands for a long time, but was it a national thing? Were you going from left to right coast, or was it something in the Midwest?
It was like a 5-day little headliner, but no, that wasn't my first tour. I did some shows as some of the other side projects that I had. I actually played as the keyboardist for a metro station back in 2015.
Oh, that's awesome. Tour. What did you end up playing?
I played keys for a bunch of the songs.
Were you just on like a MIDI controller, or did you have a fun synth picked out?
I brought my own stuff. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard from them in a hot minute.
A lot of touring and shows?
We have not. The last show that we played was a Christmas party in 2019, and we were planning on doing the Japan thing this spring, and then after that, we were going to look at maybe trying to put something together for the fall. We had a couple of summer festivals that were on the books. Yeah, I mean, aside from that, it was we're not super big on touring all the time anyway. Just because everybody's got jobs and work and kids. Yeah. But not being able to do it or being told that you're not able to and being forced to stay home for the betterment of society kind of makes the heart grow fonder, I think. Because I definitely
of a lot of things too. Like I didn't like the whole like rave thing. I don't know what it was, but now I just would give anything to go to one again.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny because
I always avoided going to shows too. Like I'm just not a very social person. And like just the thought of it was like, I don't want to be around a bunch of people. But now I'm just like, take me to one, please.
Yes, I feel that.
It's been so long.
I feel like
I didn't appreciate it while I had it.
Exactly. I'm a pretty social person, but I don't make it a point till I don't get stoked about going to shows. I don't know why. It's so loud. You can't have a conversation with anybody. Everybody's like super sweaty. Someone is already spilling beer on you. Yep. I sound like such a grumpy old Grinch, show Grinch, I guess. I don't mean to, because I know they can be fun, and I still go to support friends, that play in bands and everything. And I do have fun while I'm there. But just like going to a 500 cap venue and not being able to hear the next day and being frustrated because you can't have conversations with anybody. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, I feel that. Did I tell you how I found your music?
No.
This was 2011. I was like 16 and I was working at this camp as like a camp counselor for like second and third graders. And it was just hell. These kids would not comply. And it was like five days a week. Worst job I've had. But they were playing like the kids would play that CD of the Gummy Bear song, and they would put it on loop for like 3 hours.
Oh my God.
It was just maddening.
Right.
And then I found an Eleventyseven CD under one of the TVs in the room.
That's where they belong.
I've never seen this before. And I put it on. I'm like, that saved me.
Oh, wow.
It was my like,
I'm happy that we happen to be anything other than the Gummy Bear song. That's awesome.
I don't remember which CD that was. It was I think it was the one with the spacesuits on the front. Was it something like that?
Yeah, probably Galactic Conquest.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That was a good record.
Thanks, man. That's very kind of you to say. I feel honored to have been a little part of your camp experience that way. That's super cool. Well, tell me this, like, what are you working on right now? Do you have new music in the works, and has COVID slowed that process down for you? Is it harder to work on new stuff with brain fog?
I signed a year contract with my record label, and I've been so behind on kind of getting those songs just because COVID has a lot happened, and I ended up having to do a lot of extra work to kind of hold up the fort and kind of make sure we keep our house and don't lose everything.
Right.
All of us, me and my roommates, kind of went through a lot, and that just kind of slowed things down. So I'm slowly getting back on track, and I have a lot of stuff that I want to release.
That's awesome, man.
Mostly single type stuff. I might do another album at some point.
So are we going to be hearing new stuff from you 2021?
Yeah, I'm probably going to put out the next single in January if we get the music video done on time.
Oh, that's killer. So what's
we got a cover of Night Call coming out in about a week.
Oh, the Kavinsky tune?
Kavinsky, yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with Nina, the synthwave vocalist. She's great, and it just kind of came together.
Man, that's awesome. That's one of my favorite tracks. I have it on a lot of playlists. I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah.
That'll be super cool. So what was it like working with her? Is she essentially sending you vocal stems and you're dropping them in, or are you guys able to kind of Discord?
I pretty much did put the demo together, and I'm like, hey, you want to do vocals on this? And she's very nice and got that all over to me, and her vocals sound stunning on this track.
Oh wow. Does she send them to you?
I like them better than the original ones. Yeah, she just sent me like some dry vocal stems, and I did all the processing and stuff. I like working with new people's vocals because it's kind of something new other than just doing my own.
Yeah.
Because I sing on all my own stuff, and it's good to learn kind of how different voices react with like the same plugins and processing.
Well, I was going to say I would be remiss if I didn't ask for all of the producers and musos that listen to the podcast. If you have some go-to plugins that are kind of your magic sauce for vocals or mixes.
Yeah, definitely Diva. I use Serum a lot for the stuff that I can't do with Diva, like more complex bass design. Let me open my plugin folder. Let's see. I've been using Saurus is a synth that Tim got me into. I've been using Valhalla. They just put out a reverb called Supermassive.
Oh,
reverb delay plugin. I love their stuff. And then Repro 5.
Yeah.
And for vocals, stuff, I use Melodyne a lot. My must-have is CLA vocals by Waves.
Yeah.
That just adds something. I don't even know what it does completely.
Yeah, right.
But it just adds energy to the vocal. I think it's some sort of noise-based compression or something.
For sure.
Yeah, that is my favorite vocal process. That's just, I just throw it on the beginning of the track after an EQ and just go from there.
I think I may have had that plug-in at some point. Just kind of has like the doubler and the compressor knobs. It's just kind of like a push it till it sounds good kind of a thing. I love stuff like that.
There's a preset on there called Start Me Up Dry, and I just throw that at the beginning of every vocal track.
Nice. Yeah.
But there's some kind of like noise distortion compression that makes it so you have to put a gate on the end of it.
Okay.
Or in your master track, you'll hear like a hiss at the end of the song. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. I'm working on like a splice pack right now.
That's awesome.
It might be for splice. I'm doing a Diva preset pack as well.
Oh, that's killer, man. I'm sure people love to have that kind of stuff from you.
Yeah, I love that. I honestly love flipping through like other people's presets. So I might find a sound that might inspire me.
Yeah.
A lot of people have like an aversion towards like using presets, and I like to design a lot of my own sounds, but there's something to be said for just like finding a sound and making something out of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love getting sort of the creme de la creme of everybody else's presets. Like if they're sending you something or you find something in a pack like that, most of the time it's like it moved them in some way. So it doesn't feel as like stock as some of the other stuff feels. It feels like it's got a little bit more kind of grit or texture to it. I love that stuff. I'm going to check these synthesizers out. I know that a lot of the stuff that we do here that ends up on the record is like, we use Avenger a ton, especially for like plucky.
I haven't heard of that one.
Kind of things. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of the stuff feels very like instant top 40, but I know what you mean. You can stack so many different things like together in it relatively quickly. And then one that I just got a few months ago that's ended up on every single session I've done since then is one called Thorn, and it's by Plugin Alliance. And the thing that I love about this one is that the interface is pretty simple in terms of like getting sounds and being able to tweak them and not having to do a ton of like menu diving and connecting the dots behind the scenes. Yeah. It's just been pretty cool.
Have you messed with Phase Plant at all? A lot of my friends have been really into that. It's by I remember they do like a whole suite of plugins. Kilohertz.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit like Serum, but like infinitely more complex.
Yeah,
it's another wavetable. I think it's really cool, but I haven't gotten into it just because it looks so threatening.
Right.
I open this up and I'm like, oh, okay, and then I close it.
Yeah.
If I had the time to look into it, I'm sure it'd be really fun.
Yeah.
But my friends have been obsessed with that.
Jeff, thank you so much for spending some time with me this afternoon and wading through all of the missed calls and missed connections and trying to make this time together happen. I'm very, very grateful to you.
So good.
I'm so proud of you and everything that you're doing and all the success that you're experiencing right now.
Thanks,
and
man.
I am
really appreciate
excited to see what the ride brings for you next.
Yeah, same with your stuff. Have you been focusing more on which project have you been more focused on?
It's definitely all been 11D for now.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So just plugging away. And I've got a few tracks right now. It's funny that you're talking about names for tracks. I'll always just name songs something ridiculous. Right now I'm working on one called Poopscapade, another one called Bananas, and then something called Sonic the Hedgehog. It's just stupid shit that ends up being song titles. So, but yeah, I'm sure that'll all get changed at some point.
Thanks for having me on. It was very fun. I'd like to connect again sometime.
Right on, man. Well, all the best to you. And thanks for your time.
Yep, thank you.
11T Life is a production of Rock Candy Recordings.